Let's work together now by cleaning the air that we breathe.
Welcome to AQMD on the Air. I'm your host, Mark Carroll. With us today is Rick Bishop, the Executive Director of the Western Riverside Council of Governments. Welcome, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Let's get started, and with you telling us a little bit about what WRCOG does and its commitment to clean air.
Sure. Well, WRCOG is a joint powers authority. We have 20 members, 17 cities, the county of Riverside, and 2 regional water districts that comprise our membership. And the COG has been in place for about 20 years. And we address long-term, large-scale issues that transcend jurisdictional boundaries. So if you ask our members what are the most important issues that they see in the future of Western Riverside County, they'll tell you transportation, economic development, education, healthcare, and air quality shows up as one of the major issues because it's tied to all those other ones that I just mentioned.
Well, in Western Riverside County, as in all over the region, we're going to face a lot of changes with the growth of goods movement over the next decade. How will this specifically impact Western Riverside County, and what is the COG doing to prepare for it?
Well, it's a huge issue for us, and it demonstrates the fact that as we take a look at future growth in Western Riverside County, we can't just be insular. We can't just look at what's happening in our 17 cities. Growth at the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles, I think about 1 million containers or 1 billion containers a year are moving through those ports, and all of that stuff that comes into the ports of LA and Long Beach, almost all of it makes its way through Western Riverside County. So the impacts on our transportation infrastructure are significant, and the air quality impacts are very challenging for us, especially for folks that live or work near the major railways and the major freeways through which those goods are carried. So it's a critical issue for us as far as our economic development is concerned. It's a critical issue for us as far as air quality is concerned. And it really demonstrates one of the major issues of how we can take proactive measures that merge economy and environment. That's always been a difficult deal. A lot of folks think that you can either have one, economic development at the expense of environment, or environment at the expense of economic development. But for us, goods movement is a critical jobs producer. There are so many inland distribution warehouses in Western Riverside County and the Inland Empire as a whole. This is a major job producer for us, and so we need to be sensitive to the fact that we need these good high-paying jobs, but we also need to understand that there's some economic issues that need to be addressed as well. For WRCOG, we have developed a Clean Cities Coalition. It's been in place for several years. In fact, of about 100 of these kinds of organizations throughout the United States, the Federal Department of Energy has recognized our Clean Cities Coalition as being one of the top 5 producers as far as displacing diesel and gasoline fuel. So it's quite a successful effort, and I think the fact that our Department of Energy at the national level has recognized the efforts we're undertaking gives us a lot of headway to continue these efforts.
Among the clean air efforts you're taking, I understand that WRCOG also has a regional air quality task force. Can you tell us a little bit about what that organization is doing?
Well, we do, and it's one of a number of different approaches for us to try to bring in interested and impacted parties and individuals into the air quality discussion. We don't want our debates and discussions on air quality to be just limited to local government elected officials. It's important to bring in the residential community. It's important to bring in air quality regulators. It's important to bring in environmental groups and businesses as well. So our Regional Air Quality Task Force is one such forum for us to bring those minds together to talk about these issues and see if there's ways to find some common ground so that we can continue to grow jobs in this important goods movement sector, but we can also be sensitive to the air pollution impacts that are oftentimes associated with those jobs. And so one of the major issues and one of the major products that our Regional Air Quality Task Force has developed in past years is to develop what we call good neighbor guidelines for the siting of warehouse and distribution facilities. And it's all geared towards finding a way to take uses that people think may not be the most compatible uses as from an air quality standpoint, and find ways to mitigate them, keep them in areas that they can operate, they can employ people, they can go on with the very important task of receiving goods, processing them, and then moving them through the community, while trying to minimize the impacts on what are called sensitive receptors, like churches and schools and places where the public congregates.
Well, that sounds like a very interesting program, and we understand you have another interesting program at the WRCOG called a Neighborhood Electric Vehicle Program. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, I think it's important to note that as we move toward continuing to try to find ways to clean the air, you got to kind of pull all the stops. And our neighborhood electric vehicle program is a pilot program. We received some grant funding, and the idea here was largely due to AB 32, the state's global warming law, and then SB 375, which is a bill that was passed 2 years ago that requires regional agencies and ultimately local jurisdictions to find better ways to fuse together land use and transportation decisions. The goal of SB 375 is to reduce vehicle trips and to reduce vehicle miles traveled and ultimately reduce greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with vehicle trips. And one thing that came to mind to us as we were looking into how we might be able to help our local jurisdictions accomplish that is that it's real tough to turn the tide of land use decisions. That's largely market driven. And at the same time, most of our forthcoming and future transportation investments are already locked in, so it's not going to be easy to change the money that's allocated and programmed for some of our major transportation facilities. But if you consider that about 50% of vehicle trips are 10 miles or less in length, that gave us the idea that if we could somehow replace those cold starts and those short vehicle trips with electric vehicles, then we're onto something, and we can do something to really, really help clean the air from mobile sources. And so that gave rise to the idea of let's pursue a pilot plan, and we did this just for 4 local jurisdictions, the cities of Corona, Riverside, Norco, and Moreno Valley. They're contiguous within our subregion. If we can start to develop an idea and a routing system as to how these smaller electric vehicles can move around. Now, we're not talking about regular cars. We're talking about what I refer to as the souped-up golf carts, but they're street legal. You need a vehicle license to operate them, and they operate typically at low speeds. And so the idea behind this plan was if we can utilize existing bicycle lanes and non-motorized routes, in many cases restripe them, widen them, and create new routes that create thoroughfares on higher speed arterials, you've sort of, at a very low cost, have created infrastructure for the anticipation of the possible infiltration of these neighborhood electric vehicles that be moving through communities. They don't cost a lot of money, and they would do wonders as far as cleaning the air and reducing the emissions associated with vehicles.
That sounds wonderful, and we wish you a lot of luck as you move forward with that. And we want to thank you for joining us today and for your leadership with the Western Riverside Council of Governments and for working with local governments, industry, and the community in helping to protect the public.
Great, thank you very much.
Well, that's our show for today. Thank you for watching AQMD on the Air, and thank you for helping us clean the air that we breathe.
Let's work together.